Okay, we're joined now by Secretary Hillary Clinton on the phone as well this morning. Secretary Clinton, thank you for joining us right now. We've now had the third major terror attack in Europe in the last year and several months. Does this suggest to you that we need a new strategy against ISIS?
Well, I think we have to intensify and broaden our strategy, George. This is a horrific attack right in the heart of Europe, and it shows why we need to be in solidarity with our European allies and why NATO is still indispensable to our efforts to protect our country and our friends. We can't overstate how important it is to intensify the cooperation. And, you know, I have been laying out a three-track strategy against ISIS to increase the pressure in the region and to dismantle their networks of funding and arms and recruiting and propaganda, and to strengthen our defenses at home. And although we certainly are making steps along those lines, there are still a lot of outdated laws and practices in law enforcement, particularly in Europe, that have to be evaluated and, in my opinion, changed.
So what would you be changing?
Well, for example, if you look at some of the legal restraints that the Belgian authorities were under, like no nighttime raids, even after they thought they had located Abdus Salam, that just makes no sense. The enemy we are dealing with has no such compunctions, and even though ISIS has not formally claimed responsibility, this is an act of coordinated terrorism. Whether it could have been put together within the 4 days that he was arrested or whether it was in the planning and he was part of the planning, we have to determine. But this is going to require a real upping of our security cooperation, not only in our own country among all levels of authorities, but also with Europeans. And there has to be some honest reckoning about what works and what doesn't work. And I am, once again calling for, the law enforcement and intelligence authorities of Europe and the United States in particular to go through carefully what we think works and to do more of it. And that's going to require, smarter surveillance, quicker action, tracking communications, the kinds of things that, people have been somewhat uncertain about in the past.
We just heard Donald Trump tell us moments ago that he would expand the laws here at home so that if someone like Abdel Salam was in custody here, he could be waterboarded. Your response?
Well, that is just another one of his, claims that doesn't bear up. Our best and bravest intel and military leaders will tell you torture is not effective. It puts soldiers and increasingly our own civilians in danger. I do believe we have to give our law enforcement and intelligence professionals all the tools they need to do the job to keep Americans safe. But I don't think they need to resort to torture. That's like an open recruitment poster for more terrorists, and it's wrong and it doesn't work. But we do have to be smart and steady and strong in how we respond, and that does require tightening up our security. I talked about doing that to our visa system and our passenger name record system. We've got to, make sure that our security professionals are looking at everything we could do to be more effective in protecting us here at home and cooperating with our, friends and allies in Europe.
Ms. Trump also told us that this reinforces his call to tighten our borders, especially with regard to Muslims coming into our country.
Well, again, that shows, I think, a lack of understanding of, how our system does work. I have called for tighter visa standards, and certainly that is in process with some of the action that the administration and Congress have taken. But I also think it's fair to say, George, that, we've got to balance the values of this country, and closing our borders to all people of a certain religion is not either consistent with those, or is it smart to shut down our system of commerce and the free movement of people and goods we just have to be smarter about how we vet people, the kind of security we require. And we have to remember that, people who are intent upon committing terrorist acts are quite skilled at getting around whatever rules or regulations we put in place, which is why we've got to have better surveillance methods and tighter cooperation among all levels of law enforcement and intelligence.
Madam Secretary, I can only imagine Americans waking up this morning, seeing these images the first minute they turn on their TV, go to their phone this morning, another deadly terror attack in Europe, saying it has happened again. When is this going to end? How can you reassure them?
I totally understand, George, why people in our country and elsewhere are just, scared and upset when they see these kinds of terrorist actions. We saw that after San Bernardino in our own country. But we have to recognize that what the terrorists are trying to do is exactly that, to terrorize, to intimidate, to undermine our democratic values that are at the foundation of not only our country, but our alliance with Europe and our way of life. And we can't let them succeed in that. So we've got to strengthen our resolve to stand together within our own country. Rather than dividing our own country, we need to be united. And that's where American Muslims come in. They are among the first lines of defense that we have in the United States to find out what's happening, to have an alert about somebody that is acting suspiciously, as well as we have to have, close and cooperative relations with our friends in Europe. So we will defeat terrorism and radical jihadism, but we are going to have to really bear down on what works and how best to implement that. And tightening our security is something that I advocate, and looking for ways to enhance our understanding of terrorist behavior and communication is also essential.
Madam Secretary, thanks for joining us this morning.
Good to talk to you. I'm so sorry for the occasion. Thank you.